Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco Police number 4. But first off, before we go any further, I want to tell you that this guy was provided to me directly by Spyderco. When they announced the K390 version of this, I thought to myself, you know what? I should check out a Police 4 finally, and I like K390, so that's a good time to do it. Spyderco said, sure thing, but as always, I told them I want to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be a gem, might be junk. They still sent it along. Nonetheless, I have to assume this is the best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or quality of my review. Next thing, size comparison. Turns out this is a big knife. Here this guy is against the Spyderco Delica. This is my K390 Delica here, and what we see is this is big. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2. Yep, it's big. Here it is against the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, and what we see here is it remains big. I mean, seriously, if we put the PM2 blade on here, which is not a small knife in and of itself, put that on there, and it is still freaking tiny. This is a very, very large knife, even by my standards. Well, especially by my standards. So there's that. Next thing, the Police 4. Some of you thinking, Nick, come on, this has been around forever. Why you're just reporting on this? Well, I just never reviewed one, right? This is a very old model. This is a model that's actually been around not so long. I mean, it was one of Spyderco's very early models. But this is the first time on my table, and I decided to do it with that K390 Steel in there, which I very much appreciate. And then finally, this is a knife that is produced at the Spyderco Seki City, Japan factory. As you can probably tell from the FRN and whatnot, but nonetheless, it's a Seki City knife. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this little guy right here. So on the good side, to start with, there is no lanyard hole. That's not necessarily a good thing in and of itself, but lately, Spyderco's been making a lot of decisions based on where the lanyard hole should go. It's kind of nice to see that not win for a change, right? But it is worth noting that the clip is actually very shallow carry regardless. That's just the way that it sort of is for the tip down world. Tip up, it's actually a little less shallow, which is interesting. Next thing, this guy is big, but I appreciate the fact that Spyderco now offers a very strong range, well, has offered a very strong range of sizes. I don't have the Endura, which is in the middle here, so to speak, size-wise, but we've got ourselves the Police 4, we've got ourselves the Delica, and then down at the bottom here, we have ourselves the Dragonfly, which is sort of the little guy in the lineup here. But you are now able to get this basic idea and design of knife at pretty much any size you'd like, which I do actually appreciate. That's a nice thing. Next thing, I appreciate very much the 4-way carry here. What I mean by that is that this clip can be held to do right side tip up carry as it's currently configured for, or left side or right side tip down carry, and then vice versa. You can flop it to the other side. And as a result, by the way, this knife is a completely ambidextrous knife because the backlock is ambidextrous, the hole is ambidextrous. A lefty will have exactly the same experience with this guy as a righty. That's a beautiful thing. Next thing, this has very nice ergonomics. Even for somebody with, shall we say, smaller hands than most, this fits very well in the hand. And with this finger choil up here with dedicated jimping and everything, as well as the thumb ramp, this grips well into the hand in a very, very good way. It's also very strongly textured. As you can see here, this texturing is, well, it's non-trivial. And so this is a knife that you'll have no problem with even in the Vaseline factory or in damp conditions, although the K390 is not super well suited to damp conditions, so whatever, not a big deal. Next thing, this is a backlock. That means that the lock here in the back is, well, a back lock. Wow, that's hard-hitting journalism there, Nick. Anyways, when you press this little guy down here, it lifts this bar up, which allows the knife to close. Very straightforward, very old-fashioned, but you know what? Pretty good. And I would say that a good backlock is a little bit underrated. It's nice and strong, and in a world of liner locks and frame locks, I don't mind them, right? It still works, so that's good. The next thing, it is under an ounce an inch. This is not a lightweight knife, but it is a lightweight knife in that what we are coming in here at is, and I should actually measure the blade out so you guys know the hilarity here. We're looking at just under 4.5 inches of blade overall, and we're weighing in at 4.19 ounces. So technically, it's under an ounce an inch. Technically, it's pretty lightweight. But at the same time, it's not that light in the grand scheme. We'll talk about that later. But that said, there aren't that many ways to get this much blade much lighter than that. So that's good. Then finally, on the good side, this is not a sprint run. Spyderco is a company that does a lot of sprint runs, where they're going to make something only for, a certain number of models and then abandon it forever afterwards. This is not that. The K390 version of the Police is something that I gather they're just going to make for a while. Of course, they'll discontinue it at some point in time. But there's a very good chance that you can go buy one of these guys right now. At the time of filming, multiple retailers had these guys in stock, which is a wonderful thing in a world of out-of-stock knives. So I appreciate very much that K390 is an ongoing model, and it's nice to see something with an upgraded steel that has a chance of being purchasable next week, as well as replaced if it's damaged in the line of duty, so to speak. So all of that to me is the good. Is that it's not a sprint, it's under an ounce an inch. The backlocks are very nice and strong. It's strongly textured with great ergos, 4-way carry. I like the size range and the lanyard hole. To me, what's great though about this guy is very clearly the blade. The blade here is a full flat grind. There's some fingerprints that might obscure that fact, but this is just a full flat grind. This is one consistent flat plane here. And as a result, given that the stock isn't too thick in and of itself, this guy comes out to a very nice narrow tip here, and the edge on it is beautifully thin. Couple that with the K390 Steel, you have yourself a very, very nice cutting blade. This is a really, really nice slicer kind of blade. With a 4.5, well, a little less than 4.5-inch overall length and a 4-inch sharpened length here, this has enough cutting power to do pretty much anything. And I like K390 a lot as a steel. I've been carrying it a good deal. Well, okay, as much as I carry anything for large stretches of time, I like this Delica a lot. The K390 Delica is great because it takes a really nice, amazing edge if you sharpen it up, or I'm sorry, if you strop it up, or if you sharpen it up for that matter, and it works really well. It's not the most stainless thing ever. That is, it's Achilles' heel, but at the same time, it's good. And so this knife, the best part of this 100% is this nice, long, expansive, slicey blade. I appreciate that very much, and to me, that's what's great here. Bad side, one thing that's worth noting, though, is that this is a slicey blade, and as a result, especially areas like this tip here, this is not going to be something that you're going to want to abuse, right? This is not something you put under a manhole cover and use to pry it up. That's not that kind of thing. If you're really, really rough on your tools, or if you're using, more specifically, if you're using knives for things that aren't cutting, this is not going to maybe be the best choice for you, but that's a bad choice, generally speaking. Not the police, but doing that, right? Next thing, this is huge. This felt to me more like a sword than a knife. And given part of that's small hands, part of that's my bias. But the thing is, it's called the police because you have to be a cop not to get arrested carrying this in public, right? That's a joke. I don't know why it's called the police, that is. But at the same time, dude, this is big. This is like, take this out in the lunchroom and the Geneva Conventions people get called. That kind of level of big, right, is big. And speaking of which, it is a lightweight build, but it is still a relatively heavy knife, right? This is over 4 ounces worth of knife in your pocket. And to be fair, there's a lot of blade for that, but it doesn't carry the lightweight because it's big. It's a huge knife, and so as a result, that's a thing. Next thing, disassembly on this guy, like others in this family of the Delica, Endura, etc., is not amazing. If you watch my disassembly, you'll see the method to do it, but it's just something that could be done better. It's something, in my estimation, that probably should, right? Not a huge, big fan of that there. And then finally, actually not quite finally, the price on this guy is okay. It's not bad. It's in the bad, but it's not terrible. It's okay. It's $165 in K390, which is okay. And then it's $122 for VG10, which, not sure I'd go there. But I think this is a knife that is got an extra $20 tucked in there somewhere, and I don't quite know where it is. And that feels, by the way, the same thing with all of the models from Seki, Japan. They just haven't been bringing the value there lately. They're not ripping your face off too hard, and K390 is excellent and puts this as a very, very good performer. I'm not offended by the price, and especially with this steel, okay, but still, it's up there. Speaking of K390, not the choice for rustification, right? It's great steel, but it's not super high in stain resistance. It's fine, right? And, I've been carrying this guy for a while. You get a bit of a patina on it after a bit, but you just do have to be a little bit more careful with this relative to some of your stainless or completely stainless options out there in the world, like LC200N and whatnot. Next thing, backlocks. If you've not had one before, it is not the flickiest knife. You can flick open a backlock, not when you're under a camera, unfortunately. I kind of have to have some downward momentum. I need to give it a little bit of wrist to it, but this is not a knife that you can Spidey flick open in the same sense that you could, for instance, with a Spyderco PM2, where the compression lock gives you a lot more, free travel. That's not the way this guy works. And then finally on this guy, the centering is not quite there. We are favoring the clip side a little bit, and that's not ideal. So to me, that's what's bad, is centering isn't quite there. Backlocks are not super flicky, if that's the thing that you want. You have to use a lot of wrist in it. K390 is definitely a rusty kind of steel. The price is okay, not great, but okay. Disassembly isn't amazing. It's lightweight, but it's heavy just because of the size of it. It is huge, and it's a slicer rather than a prier. On the ugly front, honestly, there's nothing really ugly here, so I'd say let's just go to the conclusions, which is that this is a big and good knife. Right? At some level, it makes sense because it's kind of the same cloth, so to speak. The basic core idea of this is the same as a lot of knives that I've called gems in the past, right? The Delica, the Endura, the Dragonfly, all of these are really, really nice pieces. And so it would make sense that if they've made one of these guys a bit bigger, well, this guy will remain a gem, and at some level it is, because it's got a lot of good, right? It's not taken over by the lanyard people. It's got good carry options, great ergos, full ambidextrousness, good texture, good lock, relatively light construction, regular production in K390, as well as an amazing blade. It's also slicey, so it's not super meant to beat on. It's gigantic, a little bit heavy as a result. Disassembly isn't great. The price is... The K390 is excellent, but not rust-proof. It's not flicky, and the centering wasn't super there. Actually, one of the little tiny detail that I forgot to mention, the clip is just barely at the edge of the pad on this guy, so this does have a tendency to catch the fabric of your pocket in the design a little bit more than some of the other Spydercos where the clip is right in the middle of the pad, so to speak. Not a big deal, but anyways, I digress. The fact is, the knife is good. It's quite a good knife, and for something that if you're looking for this much blade, you know what? It's coming from a good place, right? But at some level, this review has been a little bit tough for me. It's been required introspection because this is huge by my standards. This is not a knife that I would ever carry, generally speaking, in my daily life because I don't have the kinds of cutting tasks that demand this damn much blade. That's just not a thing that I end up doing. Like if I became a baker and I needed a folding cake knife, then okay, sure, we're starting to talk. But at the same time, I don't necessarily see it. So at some level, the thing about this guy is like, okay, the Endura, for instance, is the intermediate range here. It's something right between the Delica and the Police here. That is a knife that feels like it's bigger than I need, right? That's a knife where the blade length is a little bit long. But you know what? It carries very well, and honestly, it's bigger than I need, but that's okay. I can still carry that. This feels like it's a knife that's bigger than I want. And it's a subtle distinction, but this is at the point where I think the size is starting to become a liability, both in terms of the weight, both in terms of the size in the pocket, as well as in terms of the fact that Irma from accounting is going to dive under the table and not come back out until the SWAT team gets there, right? This is a really, really large knife, and so at a certain point, this has become so large that it becomes a little problematic in my life, so to speak. The Endura is right on that edge. This guy is clearly over the line. And so as a result, if you're just looking at this review going like, yeah, I'm looking for a knife, I was thinking the Spyderco Police, my feeling and my sensation is, you know what, you probably end up wanting the Delica or maybe the Endura if you want something a little bit bigger. Right? This feels like it's over that line. But that said, there are going to be a subtype of people who are bakers and need a portable cake knife. Or maybe they are regularly standing just a little bit further away from something they need to cut than they want to be. I don't freaking know exactly why. If you need a knife this big in your daily life, let me know in the comments why. Because I'm really curious. But if you are looking for a knife that's this big, if you're looking for this kind of blade, you're looking for this kind of size, and you're willing to put up with the weight, you're willing to put up with the size of the thing generally, then you know what? This is going to be a really nice choice, and I think this could very, very easily be a gem for you. So anyways, there you go. If you're just looking for a knife, this is maybe a little bit too big, but otherwise, I can totally see you wanting to cop the Police. Because cop means purchase, right? No? You might pull this guy over into your collection. Okay. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, and have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.